Hi, hello there. This is video number 2 in a two-part series that I have devoted to talking about the effects of allopathic cancer treatments. And in my first video of this little two-part series on my YouTube channel, you can go back and see I talk all about the long-term effects that I'm still currently experiencing now, 3 years out from undergoing the sort of standard, well, not really standard, it was kind of above and beyond the standard of the Western allopathic treatment protocol for triple negative invasive ductal carcinoma breast cancer. So I was diagnosed in 2017. I was 42 years old, and I had a 5-centimeter tumor in my right breast, and it was triple negative breast cancer, which happens to be one of the most rare and aggressive forms of breast cancer that is known. I also tested positive for the BRCA2 mutation. So essentially it just means I'm, according to, them, I'm predisposed to having a higher risk for breast cancer amongst many other kinds of cancers, and it just so happens that triple negative breast cancer does have a high recurrence rate. It's super aggressive, and I've been told that if it does come back, that it will be stage 4, and according to my oncologist, there's nothing we'll be able to do about it, which I don't agree with, but that's how it was framed to me. So back in 2017, as you can hear about in my last video, I underwent chemotherapy, 6 rounds of Taxotere, adriamycin, and Cytoxan, and then I had a bilateral mastectomy, and after that I suffered a massive blood clot in my leg that went from my knee up into my abdomen as a result of that surgery, and then was hospitalized for that and had surgeries to remove that. And then I underwent radiation for I think I was supposed to go 50 times, and I didn't quite make it to the end because by the end my body was just so torn up from treatments, and not to mention I couldn't get my arm into place because there was so much scar tissue and cording happening that it was a struggle to even get my arm into position to receive the treatment. Anyways, in my first video, I talk all about how those treatments now still currently live in my body and affect my body. And I've been really devoted to my own healing experience. And it's a daily devotion, and it's something that I've been focused on during treatment and ever since until this day. And so yeah, if you want to hear about all the effects that I'm currently still experiencing, go back to that video. This one is focused on what I do to heal currently and what I've been doing and what works best for me. And so I'm going to start off by sharing with you the things that I do for healing and recovering from those treatments that are free. So I'm going to start off with things that hopefully literally anybody could access, and then I'm going to go on, and towards the end I'm going to share about the things that you need to pay for that cost money, or you might be able to do a trade for if you are struggling with financial resources, which I can totally relate to. So And before I jump into it, I just want to say that I have been in the process of writing a book about my life and my experience, that crucible experience with cancer. And I've been writing it in chunks, and then I'll go through just periods of block where it seems like I literally cannot access that part of myself that is able to do the writing. But I just want to say that I am still in process with that, and I'm making progress with it, and I'm really stoked that not only am I writing out my story as hopefully inspiration and hope to those who are going through either their own cancer experience or a dark night of the soul. Not only am I sharing that, but I'm sharing my roadmap to shifting from surviving to thriving, a guide, and sharing all the tools that have been in my toolkit that got me through the darkest nights of my soul and continue to help me tune into myself, tap into what is real, connect with myself and source and the earth and others. And especially, I think now more than ever on planet Earth, do we need to acquire the tools that are going to help us through these difficult and turbulent times, because hopefully what we are all aiming for is to live a life of thriving. And I know personally for me, that is my intention, to live a life of thriving, but not just for me personally or just for me and my kids. I'm calling in a life of thriving for all and for our planet. And so that is what my book is about. So let's get into this. I made a bunch of notes, so here we go. So if you are someone who is currently undergoing cancer allopathic treatments, you might really want to tune in to listen to this and start applying it now, or just you can refer to this later on in your healing journey. Maybe you can apply these things now. These are things that I did during my treatment, but I also know that when we're in treatment, we can be in such a state of disarray that, sometimes all you can do in a day is like get up from your bed and go to the bathroom and then go back to your bed, right? So this is for people who are going through allopathic treatment. This is also for people who are supporting those who are going through allopathic treatment. And hopefully allopathic practitioners would listen to this and have a sense of what we do integratively to support ourselves with the adverse effects of treatments, and not only at the time of, but these long-term effects that I think I don't hear much about from others. And I think it's very important to shine a light on this experience, because when I talk to other people who are recovering from the cancer allopathic treatments, I find that these are very common things that people struggle with, but I hadn't found any support with it with my team of doctors, and so sometimes we have to carve out our own path, but it's also helpful to not have to reinvent the wheel and to share the resources with others. And so my intent is to share with you what works best for me. So without further ado, here we go. So, healing practices for cancer allopathic treatment effects. Now, I'm going to share with you what I've been doing, and the first question that I think we have to ask ourselves truly is, do I want to heal and recover from this? So that might be you in the cancer journey, currently getting the treatments. This might be you after the fact and experiencing the really harsh consequences of the treatments. And I think it's important just to start off approaching healing with the mindset of, do I want to heal? Because even some people go into the allopathic treatments because they just feel pressured, right? They feel pressured by their family, they feel pressured by their doctors, and they might not even want to heal from cancer, which is also, anyone's choice about their own life. So I think it's just important in the beginning to get clear, do you want to heal? And that might be feeling like stating the obvious for most, but it's just a very real question. And then we lay a really clear foundation of, yes, I want to heal, or no, I don't. So if it's a very clear, full-bodied yes for you, then the next step I would recommend is have a vision, a dream, and a goal. So I think this is key. It's pivotal for us to give ourselves permission to have a dream and a vision of where we want to be in life as we go through this healing journey. Now, I say that because going through cancer and the treatments, my whole ability to dream and vision and imagine the future completely, almost completely stopped. Like, I wasn't able to access envisioning a future. I think it's because I was given such a bleak outlook around my own particular diagnosis, and because I was, eye to eye with death. And it was easier for me to imagine dying than it was for me to imagine living on, for another year or 5 years or 10 years, 15, 20. And it's pretty wild that could, the tables can turn so quickly with a cancer diagnosis. And when we start looping in, traumatic type thinking, or thinking that is a result of trauma or unresolved trauma, we can hypervigilantly focus on worst case scenarios, and it doesn't feel safe to even give ourselves permission to dream or have a vision. So I just want to say, give yourself permission to dream, and if you can't conjure the dream or the vision, be patient and compassionate with yourself. Sometimes it takes time. It took me a long time. I remember distinctly having conversations with a couple of friends of mine where I couldn't envision the future at all, and it was a safety mechanism of my own mind and being that was just like, it's too risky and dangerous to even think about the future, and don't set yourself up for that kind of failure. And I think it was like, for me, getting a little bit farther away from the epicenter of treatments and having a little bit of spaciousness of time where I started to settle back into my body and start to tell myself that being in my body was a safe place to be. I had to literally tell myself that over and over again because it hadn't been for so long, So, and it felt like I was lying to myself when I would say that for quite a long time. So it's a process, and I just want to encourage you to be patient and compassionate with yourself in conjuring the vision of what life you are calling forth and what thriving looks like to you and what are your goals and dreams. So the next thing is devote yourself to your healing. Now, I have found that this healing journey has been a long and winding road, and so it can be frustrating because, especially like for me going into my cancer diagnosis, I felt like a very healthy person, an able-bodied, able-minded person. And so to experience that going in and then experience the effects of treatments and then to feel who I was on the other side of them it was just like I was a completely different person and didn't have access to those other abilities. So it's been frustrating for me to see my healing be so slow. And I didn't have any expectation of what it would be like, but I would have never fathomed that here 3 years out I'd be experiencing all the adverse long-term effects that I'm currently experiencing. So it requires devotion. So much frustration could come up because we want the healing to happen now. We want to get on with it. We want to have our life back. You know, we want to feel normal again. And just for me, it hasn't been the case. And for the clients that I work with and the friends that I have that are going through the cancer journey, it's not really often the case unless, you know, a lot of people can have lighter treatments, or maybe they just have just the surgery or just the radiation or whatever it might be, and it's an easier transition in and out. So it varies according to each person, but devote to it. Some days you're just going to feel awful and you're not going to want to do it, and that's okay. We have to give ourselves permission to wax and wane and fluctuate. So we don't want to be too hard on ourselves when we start to lose momentum and steam. Sometimes what we do is just allow ourselves to take our foot off the gas a little bit, cruise, and then again, when we are more resourced, we can pick back up on it. And over time, we build consistency with our practices, and I like to think of my practices as a devotion rather than a discipline. And so I think of it comes to me more as like this, a devotion feels more heart and soul, and it feels just more authentic, and discipline in my head just kind of sounds like this thing that I have to do. And maybe it's just wordplay, but I like to think of my healing practice, the relationship that I have to it is devotion, and it feels more reverent, it feels more deeply centered and rooted in my body. I'm gonna have a sip of water. 1 second, please. I just spilled a little bit. Okay. So, next, call upon your higher power for grace and a way. And so, this again is another fundamental aspect of this healing journey for me. And I'm not imposing what works for me on anyone, but if it resonates and you connect to whatever your form of higher power is, it might even be your inner guidance, yourself, the earth, source, spirit, great spirit, your ancestors, the elements, the forces of nature, your mind, whatever the thing might be, your body. Tune into that and ask for grace, humbly and sincerely and reverently. And you can give thanks, be in gratitude, and ask for a way to be presented to you and made if you can't see the way. I can't emphasize that enough. So those are just kind of like the intro to the practices, is to get really clear with the intention so that we are laying that solid foundation for our healing to be built upon, or we're cultivating it up out of those roots, right? Okay, so I want to start off with nature, and I have found that nature as my ally has been a pivotal force for my healing. And you know, it might sound I don't know what the word is, like maybe it just sounds so glaringly obvious that we might write off nature as a powerful ally in healing, but I really want to speak to it and encourage you again to utilize the resources that are free and available to you. And nature is literally designed for thriving, for our healing. Nature, we are one with nature. And when we live in accordance with nature, we will thrive. It's it's the design of life. It's the design of nature. Nature is designed with the law of abundance. Nature is designed with the law of thriving. And so much of our dis-ease and imbalance on the planet now is because we are not living in accordance with nature. And because we have, as humans, just, really pulled back from cultivating our connection to nature. And it serves us, it serves the earth, it serves all of life when we restore that remembrance that we are nature, and when we start to restore our union in the ways that we live nature. And so just some really basic things I'm going to start off with. So breathing fresh air and getting sunshine daily. And so this would just mean get outside if you can and breathe. Hopefully just like barefaced breathing the air. And if you don't feel safe doing that for whatever reason, go to a place that, doesn't have other people around and do it there. And breathe deeply and be in union with the breath. Receive breath into your body. Surrender the exhale. Make it reverent. Make it a dance. Make it rhythmic. Make it a meditation. And receive the sunlight on your skin. And so these are powerful, potent forces that help us on all levels. All of our systems of our being benefit from getting outside, breathing the air, being in sunshine. If for some reason you cannot get outside, open your window, breathe that air, sit by the window, let the sun come in and kiss you and commune with it. So yes, getting into nature, connecting, walking, breathing. This is something that I started doing with such devotion right after my diagnosis, but going into chemo. And when I had enough energy, I would get out and I would go take a walk by the ocean every day. And I know not everybody lives by the ocean, but hopefully you have a space in your surroundings where there's trees or where there's dirt or soil or plants. I would just invite you to go seek out those places and commune there and walk there and breathe there. And hopefully you can get away from cars, get away from pollution if possible, and walk and breathe. This is a rhythmic, moving meditation. You can do it with, your headphones on and listen to inspiring podcasts, listen to music, or just do it with nothing in your ears and listen to nature and listen to, your thoughts. Or you can even just, pray as you walk or sing or whatever it might be. But that connecting and communing with nature, with walking and breathing is a blessing. And I still do it at least once a day, every day, still. And when I'm, really able to, I get out there twice a day. And, I was just going to say, my next point was grounding barefoot in nature. And so, again, I'm blessed. I live near the ocean. I can get there and be barefoot on the sand. Sometimes I take my walk along cliffs and I go barefoot and I feel the sand, the dirt under my feet. Or, even if you could just go stand on a patch of land and barefoot, root down. There are so many healing benefits for grounding. It's called grounding. And there's actually a movie, I think it's free on YouTube. You can go watch it. It's called Earthing. Earthing, grounding, same thing. But you're attuning to the Schumann resonance of the earth. And when we as humans, as we are designed to do, are skin-to-skin contact with the earth, it affects our whole electromagnetic system being and allows all of our systems to really come into coherence and then we can cultivate more healing in our bodies. It benefits the whole being. Swimming in bodies of water, if available to you. Obviously, you want them to be clean bodies of water. I like to go swim in the ocean as much as possible, and this is a part of my cold water therapy practice. I live in San Diego, so I'm kind of, we're wimpy in San Diego. We're used to warmer waters, even though they're still cold in my opinion. But so I'll get into cold water therapy in a little bit when I talk about Wim Hof method, but if you can, go and float in the water, swim in the water, be encapsulated by the water. It's actually the most effective way of earthing and grounding, because you're getting all the surface area of your skin in the water, in the resonance of the earth, and you're getting the negative ions of the water when you're in the ocean, and you just feel like you're in a big salty womb. And there's the benefit of surrender, and there's the benefit of overcoming something hard or scary for a lot of people. So I highly recommend getting in bodies of water and blessing your body with the element of water. Quietly observe nature. And so, again, if you can't get out of your house, you can do that from a window. If you can see a bird or a tree or a plant, commune with nature in that way. If you can get outside, commune with the plants and the trees and the earth and the water and the animals, the wildlife around you, and tune in to the wisdom of nature. Drop in and be quiet. Observe the intelligence of nature. And you could even do it in a contemplative way, where you maybe ask a question out into the universe, or to your higher power, and just sit and observe and see what you notice, see what the downloads are. Attune your energy to nature. These are profoundly healing practices. There are things we can do out in nature that are super empowering, and it's stacking functions in nature. So praying, meditating, singing, dancing, drumming in nature, or hanging out with friends, hanging out with your pets in nature, doing things that lift your spirit and connect you to something greater than you. And, I think that these simple things are so much undervalued in our society, in our Western world. Obviously, indigenous peoples all over the earth knew the intrinsic values of being in nature and drumming and singing and walking and gathering in a circle in community, or having a bonfire and hanging out at night and telling stories, and just the art of being connected as humans, as mammals that are communal. There's medicine in this, and although perhaps it's more challenging to quantify it and present to you scientific data, what we feel when we do it doesn't lie. And it's a felt experience, and it's a transcendental experience, and it brings us back to ourselves, and it brings us back to what is real. So I highly encourage that. Gardening, connecting with animals, plants, water, soil. If you can, get a seed. You don't even have to, go and buy a seed packet. You could get a seed out of one of the vegetables or fruits that you get at the store, and get some soil, plant it in, a cup if you don't have a pot, and start to remember that way of humans that we have done for thousands of years in our connection with nature, and connect back to that abundance consciousness and the magic of what happens when the elements converge. We can steward the process and support it, and we can be blown away and mystified that one seed in soil will bring forth a plant that will have exponentially more seeds and life to come forth. And when we start to attune to those processes and cycles and seasons of nature, it brings us back into a state of thriving, which helps us heal. It helps us remember, I am designed to heal and thrive. I'm designed to thrive when living in union with the earth. Oh yeah, I forgot. Or perhaps I was programmed to not remember that or know that. So I consider nature a therapist. I have created so much art in my process out in nature, making dance videos and poetry and drumming and singing, and I think of Mother Nature as my therapist, as my lover, as my friend, as my sister, as my just confidant, just everything. And I can go and be spontaneous in nature and create art there and be vulnerable there and be transcendent there, and I can cry and I can scream and I can wail and I can ask questions and I can complain and I can emote, and then I can also drop in and listen, and so I can converse and have an exchange and a conversation with nature. And for people who cannot afford traditional therapists or therapies, Mother Nature is free and she is a therapist. And so I just want to recommend that for everyone. Okay, next little section on prayer and meditation. And again, if it doesn't resonate with you, then I totally respect that. I just want to say that what I have found, and what I've found in people that I work with and people in my community, that tuning into a higher power is a pivotal part of moving through any challenging circumstance, especially one like cancer, which, it's like life and death circumstances, and we come very close to confronting death. And for me, going through that experience, I already had a relationship with my higher power, a very deep and intimate and nuanced relationship going in. And yet I found, while in process of allopathic treatments, my relationship that I thought was deep and nuanced and profound expanded exponentially. And that going through this dark, dark, dark night of my soul, this dark chapter of my life, awakened in me an even deeper understanding of Great Spirit, Source, myself, my inner spirit, the nature of reality as what feels true inside of me. And I'm not saying it has to be true for everyone else. I respect everyone's individual connection and relationship to life. But I found that prayer and meditation have been a massively key component for me shifting from surviving to thriving, and retrieving myself from spiraling anxious thoughts and depression and trauma and resolving trauma. And it's a daily relationship that I cultivate and nourish. And again, I can't emphasize this one enough. So I want to say I start my day off in prayer and meditation, and this is something that I did prior, but not with the consistency that I do now. And there's nothing like having brushes with death that would bring one into an even deeper gratitude and reverence for just simply being alive, simply waking up in the morning, simply having a body. And I took those things for granted prior to cancer. And then going into the diagnosis and going through the treatments, especially because they were so harrowing and destructive, and put my life at risk, It wasn't just that cancer was threatening my life, the treatments were. And I had several near-death brushes during the treatment process. And so every day that I woke up and opened my eyes, even though, it was gnarly during that time, painful, scary, horrific, I was still able to wake up and go, oh my God, I'm alive. I've been gifted another day. I can open my eyes and see. And even if I struggled with getting up out of bed and walking to the kitchen or to the bathroom, I was like, I'm alive. I was able to drop deeply into the miracle of being alive and be in a state of gratitude. And it brought forth this whole process of being in gratitude. And, I listen to a lot of Joe Dispenza and study his work, and I love how he says the state of gratitude is the emotional signature of it is already completed. And so when we're in a state of gratitude, we're affirming all the blessings that are come to fruition in our lives. And it's a great way to not only get our mindset into an uplifted, vibrant place, to uplift our mood, uplift our mind, uplift our being into a state of gratitude. It changes our actual frequency that we're vibrating at. Not only that, but if we are calling forth something like health when we are very ill, we are affirming the health. It's easy for us to loop incessantly on the pain and what's wrong and the horrible thing going on. And then I just want to say, it's important for us to name it and be real about it without spiritually bypassing it, but to also say, and I'm so grateful to be alive. I'm so grateful that I have a roof over my head. I'm so grateful that my 2 children are alive and healthy and happy. I'm so grateful that I'm able to speak to you right now on this device, that it's a miracle in and of itself. I'm so grateful that there's food in my fridge. I'm so grateful that I can breathe in and out through my mouth and nose. So I start my day in gratitude and prayer, and I start my day holding myself to release oxytocin in my body. That's the feel-good love chemical. So if we don't have partner touch, we can start the day in this kind of reverent holding and prayer and meditation of, we can create our own chemistry with an extended hug for more than 10 seconds. So I like to hold myself and do my prayer right when I wake up. I open my eyes, I close them again, and I pray. And I have a whole prayer that I have written out and that I do every day, where I do my daily devotions of honoring and giving thanks to Great Spirit, my ancestors, my elders, my family, all my relations. I go through blessings, offering blessings, and affirming who I am and why I'm here. And I say it out loud and I read it at the same time, and it's a powerful blueprint for the day. And then I seek to, lay the blueprint in the morning and then live it and emanate it throughout the day, all day long. And of course I'm a human being, and of course I fluctuate, and of course I'm just perfectly human. But it's like my North Star. It's helping me chart my course by being really clear about what I'm thankful for, attuning my frequency, connecting with Great Spirit, myself, and all the benevolent forces that support my healing journey, and move forward from that place. Let me see here. Prayer and meditation helps me with anxiety and or panic and PTSD symptoms. This is really important to name. I'm imagining, if you're going through the cancer journey, that you have your fair share of anxiety and depression that you're navigating, and PTSD and unresolved trauma. And so a very powerful tool for me is, if I'm experiencing a looping obsessive, intrusive thought that snuck through and now is seeking to mutinize my inner peace and my well-being. And my mind becomes fixated on that because this is an effect of PTSD, unresolved trauma. We can hyper-vigilantly focus on any potential threat to our well-being. And so there's nothing wrong with you if you do that. It's a response to unresolved trauma. So we want to have compassion with ourselves in that moment. And what I like to do is acknowledge it's happening in that moment. So, this takes practice. I wasn't able to do this in the beginning. It's taken me a lot of practice, time and time and time and time and time and time again, to develop this ability where if something pops up, if say it's an anxious thought, for an example, I can name it. Okay, right now I'm thinking that. Right now I'm feeling this. Okay, right now I'm not feeling safe because ... And so I get really clear about what I'm thinking and feeling, and I honor it in that way. And, again, this is what works when I'm really in my center. So there's always varying degrees of this. But then I can also, check in with my environment and see if there is an actual potential physical threat to my well-being in that moment. And I can also go into prayer and I can ask my inner guidance system or Great Spirit or whatever that thing is for you, that energy, that entity, our inner spirit. Please fill me with courage right now. Please fill me with peace. Please help me come back to what is real. Please help me navigate this difficult moment. Please help me take another deep breath and ground into my body. Please help me see what's the next correct step to do. So we can use it as an emergency tool in our toolkit to pray and come back to our center when we feel ourselves charting off course into a spiral. Journaling, it's another pretty much free, very inexpensive tool to utilize in our healing practice. And I use my journal daily, at least every morning, or sometimes through the day. And again, this is a place where I'm writing out my gratitudes. And I'm also writing out what I'm calling in and cultivating. So I'm again affirming in other ways through my writing. I am healed. I am thriving. I write all of these things out. And even if it's not how I'm feeling in the moment, it's what I'm calling in. And if that just feels so off or false, we can also say, right now I am really struggling with this, and we can write it all out and it can be a dump. We can just dump it there. Get it off our shoulders. And then we can shift into inner spirit, please show me how to alchemize this. I'm really challenged by this thing, and I really want to call forth more ease and more freedom and more joy and more bliss and more functionality and more whatever the thing might be. And thank you, inner spirit, for showing me how to do this when I don't know the way in my conscious mind right now. Okay, writing gratitude for all the blessings is a way to redirect our minds from anxiety, which I just kind of expressed. Anxiety or fear or whatever the struggle might be. Write out our dreams as if they've already come to pass. This is another way that we can continue to affirm that energy and that frequency of our dreams coming to pass. And not only that, how's it going to feel? How does it feel when it comes to pass? Again, referencing Joe Dispenza, who's been such a game changer in my life. The thought and the feeling are the magic formula. We want to have the thought and the vision of what we're calling in, and we want to have the emotions that are the frequencies. So he says the thought is the electricity it's sending out, and the emotion is the magnet that's calling it in. So we want to really drop in to feel what it feels like when our dream actually comes to pass. And if it's healing, What will it feel like in your body when you have healed? Or when you're in the healing process and you've made some progress with it? How does that feel for you? Okay, and I just wrote, helps shift your mindset, carry it into your day. So again, it's like that morning prayer. A morning journal practice can, again, it's like getting it from your brain to your pen to your page. You can say it out loud as you write it. Multiple modalities of affirming your transformation, your inner alchemy, calling on your inner alchemist to move through you in as many ways as possible, and then carry that into your day and live that. Okay, so this video is long, but when is one of mine not? Cold water therapy and breath work. So, right towards the end of my allopathic treatment protocols, like right into radiation, I started really studying the Wim Hof method. And at first I was very uncomfortable with Wim Hof just because I had to ice myself during the Taxotere part of my chemo treatments every time, because they ice hands, feet, and mouth for that, hour when it's dripping into your body through the IV, because the ice is supposed to help decrease the chances of us getting neuropathy in our hands and feet and getting sores and blisters in our mouth from the treatment. So I became so adverse to ice because of that. I had to do the icing every time, that just like seeing crushed ice would just make me sick. And, cold anything was just like horrid, because it, in my brain and my nervous system, correlated ice with disgusting chemo and the feelings that I felt experiencing it in my body. So even thinking about Wim Hof during chemo, I was like, I can't even think about it, because he just is the Iceman. I couldn't even think about Wim Hof. Anyways, far enough out from chemo, once I was in the radiation phase, I started studying the Wim Hof method, and I did a training. I did the Wim Hof method training. I started doing daily cold shower therapy and the breath work, and it's, super powerful for boosting our immune system, healing our nervous system, healing trauma. There's so many benefits to it. I highly recommend that if you don't know about the Wim Hof method, to research it and him. He has a lot of things to say about it, the healing powers for meditation, mindset, cold water therapy, and the breath work together. So, yes, I've been doing cold water therapy and the breath work ever since, and also incorporate Joe Dispenza's breath work method. But you don't have to pay to learn this. He has a free app, Wim Hof. You can watch YouTube videos, you can go to his website. There's tons of YouTube videos where you can see, I have videos on my channel, I'm pretty sure, where I'm taking people through the Wim Hof breathwork method, and I recommend it. I also want to say it's also a mood booster, the cold shower therapy, so it can help bring us out of depressive states. It's enlivening, it's awakening, and it helps us titrate into putting ourselves in an uncomfortable experience voluntarily and willingly, and doing a hard thing. So we're not like repeating trauma or shock. We're taking ourselves, titrating into an uncomfortable experience. Say it's the cold shower for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, whatever you might choose in the beginning. At the end of your hot shower, go cold for 10 seconds. This is a way for us to practice that I can do this hard thing that is going to help me heal. And then when you get out, you start to feel the benefits, and it's incredible. It's very powerful, and it has helped me a lot with bringing up my energy, enlivening my energy, and helping me manage depressive energy. Okay. Oh, in my note, I also have that it alkalinizes the body, and so that helps when we're in a more acidic state. And anybody who's going through cancer treatment is in a highly acidic state, and also anybody who's putting pharmaceuticals in their body, highly acidic. So we want to alkalinize to bring our body's pH level back into a state of balance so that we can experience thriving in our body temples. Sleep is another free tool for healing. Thanks for hanging in for me this whole long talk. I just noticed it's like 50 minutes already. Sleep. Avoid blue light before bed. If you can wear, glasses that block blue light, or turn off your phone at least an hour, or devices an hour at least before sleep. Or just like use your phone less at night. Maybe once the sun goes down, you're just device free. I still find that challenging because I'm doing things on devices, but I do notice that when I shut down the device at night and I read instead of using my phone, that I tend to get more solid sleep. I also have found that using an eye mask at night really helps me. It blocks out the light, and it's signaling to my body it's time to go night-night. And I gotta say, I've had so much disturbed sleep since diagnosis. Not even into the treatment yet, but just the distress from diagnosis, and then of course the distress from treatments can be very disruptive to our sleep. The anxiety, the swirling thoughts, the discomfort in our bodies, it can really mess up our sleep. And so I just want to highly recommend sleep hygiene to anyone who's wanting to shift from a state of surviving to thriving. It helps all systems of our body, and figure out what is best for you. And there's simple things that you can do to help yourself get better sleep. And I have gone through periods where I've had such high anxiety that I would wake up, a couple times through the night, be awake for hours, and with super anxious thoughts. I got into habits for a while where I would especially during the first part of the lockdown, I just needed human connection, and I would just put on videos or podcasts just to hear humans, to feel connections with humans. And I did that kind of a long time during the whole last year. But I find also that I have shifted that, where if I wake up in the middle of the night, I might meditate now instead of going to the device. Even though it's that was a coping mechanism, it was a coping strategy, but it was also me trying to meet my need for human connection. So I'm really compassionate and gentle with myself when I notice that I'm using coping strategies that might not be the greatest. But I'm in my mind too, I'm well, I'm not popping a pharmaceutical to get back to sleep, so, so all that to say, try not to look at a screen if you wake up in the middle of the night, because then you're signaling to your brain it's time to get up, but you don't want to get up, you want to go back to sleep. Okay. I feel like I'm blah, 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 talking so fast, which I'm not used to doing. Okay. Hydration and nutrition. So, drink clean water and enough of it. And so, there's all different theories about what enough water is. The rule of thumb that I like to follow, I believe it's half your body weight in ounces. So, I like to just keep filling my glass throughout the day and keep chugging water. Excuse me. If you're like me and your bladder has been affected by chemo, you can find drinking anything very frustrating because you have frequent urination and it's really annoying. But I found that when I quit drinking caffeine, that actually my bladder has done better. So I noticed there's a correlation between the two, and now I'm able to urinate less frequently and, you know, chug the water, and actually replaced the caffeinated tea with water. And so it's like, again, stacking functions and more benefits for my body. And, you know, on that note, stopping with the caffeine has also helped me bring anxiety levels down. And so I'm just really stoked that I was able to let that vice go. And, you know, on that note, mate was my morning ritual. It was like my morning treat. I would wake up and do my morning meditation and prayer and make myself my ritual cup of tea. And, you know, it's a highly caffeinated herb. And there's so many benefits to the herb, but there was also detrimental factors that I was experiencing, and I just didn't want to be dependent on caffeine anymore. It just wasn't feeling good for me anymore. And so I just recently weaned myself off mate and had a whole detoxing process around that. It was challenging, but I feel much, much better now. And on that note, I just want to encourage folks to, you know, if you can, be as independent from any type of thing that you're developing an unhealthy dependency on, whether it's alcohol or substances or anything that would diminish your thriving and well-being and your energy. And I know when you're going through difficult times and you don't have a lot of coping strategies, you reach for maybe what feels comforting and routine. And so, you know, just to say, be compassionate and kind with yourself, but also do small incremental things that take you off of the dependencies to those things that might be helping you cope in maybe not the most healthy way. Oh, cool. Okay, that was the next thing on my list. Cut out intake of what ails you, substances. Eat real, nutrient-dense food, chemical-free, and local if possible. Now, obviously, depending on your resources and your ability to access real food, fresh food, food that hasn't been sprayed with pesticides or grown in chemicals, food that is local, that wasn't shipped from halfway around the world. We want to eat seasonally. We want to eat locally. We want to also support local farmers if possible. This way of eating also totally benefits our body. It benefits the earth. It benefits others in our community. And again, I know that so many people live in food deserts. So many people do not have the money to buy these types of things. And so I just want to encourage all of us to seek out the most real and whole and healthy forms of food available to us. And that's going to look different for everyone. And I know that my food intake has actually shifted dramatically over the past year. I have started incorporating in new things into how I eat, and I've just been really tuning into my intuition and listening to my body and trying to figure out what to do to help my body with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and arthritis and brain fog. Beyond brain fog, it's cognitive damage. And so I'm exploring eating to help my body regenerate from these ill effects from treatments. And I'm turning to food as medicine. Also, another thing that does cost money is medicinal mushrooms. Paul Stamets has a company called Host Defense, and he has a tincture that I love to use and recommend. I think it's called My Community. But it has a lot of medicinal mushrooms that have all kinds of healing benefits, and also include mushrooms that perform neurogenesis and help us regrow our neurons in our brain and just support the healing in our bodies, and also help combat cancer in the regrowth of it or repopulation of it, or just the population of it in our body. A lot of people use microdosing, and that could probably be in another video, but that is really powerful to use mushrooms for healing unresolved trauma and anxiety and depression and these types of things. Obviously, I'm not a medical doctor and I would never give medical advice, so just to make that clear, but just to share that it is a practice that is gaining more and more traction in the scientific world, and it's now being studied, and there's so many studies that are showing the medicinal benefits for utilizing mushrooms in that way, magic mushrooms in that way. And of course, I think the most important part of nutrition and hydration is blessing our food, blessing our water before it goes in our bodies. And so this is a practice that I love to do, is to give thanks to Great Spirit, Mother Earth, and the hands that planted and cultivated and provided and prepared what I'm about to put in my body. You know, the plants and animals that sacrifice themselves so that I could be nourished. And I invite them to live on in their destiny inside of my body, that we could work together and fulfill our destinies together to be a blessing to the greater good. And so I believe honoring what we put in and ingest in our bodies is a form of reverence, respect, and honoring that life that sacrificed for us to be nourished. And eventually one day, when we drop our bodies, they will be nourished by us, by our body temples, as they return back into the earth. And so just to think of that relationship of reciprocity and connection and seasons and cycles. And it's just a beautiful thing to share with others who you might be engaging in a meal with, is to do the blessing together. It's a nice form of connection. Community. Cultivate and nourish relationships with people who are real. Make it mutual. This is key. So community is a big part of our healing. And having relationships with people who are real and who want to show up and have an exchange with you that's authentic, based in love, and mutual. And obviously this is so much easier said than done. Obviously so many of us have our unique and extenuating circumstances, especially right now, around relating to people, especially in such a deeply polarized time where it can feel like less and less do we have connections with maybe people who we used to have connections with. But we want to cultivate that human connection, and so we want to invest our energy into people who are worthy of our mutuality and our deepening and our connection and our investment. It can be frustrating and challenging when we make that investment and there isn't a reciprocity. And so we have to be really clear and have healthy boundaries around how much energy are we putting out and investing, and feel into the quality of the connection and relationship, and really tune into those in our lives that are choosing us and are saying yes. And, if there is a loving relationship that is fractured or, is struggling for whatever reason, and you do genuinely care and love that person, then seek to find the medicine for the mending and the connection. And I just want to stress the importance of cultivating the relationships that are based in mutuality. Those tend to be the most fulfilling when there is this beautiful exchange of give and take, or give and receive, right? And really working on our ability to communicate and be clear, first of all, inside of ourselves, and have, of course, the number one relationship that we need to cultivate is the one with ourselves. And the more skilled we get with that, the more then we can show up in relationship with others. And so also our relationship with our higher power helps with that. Our relationship with the earth helps with that as well. Be willing to release relationships that are not mutual or aligned or unwilling to grow with you. This is a hard lesson to learn. This is something that I had to face big time going through my treatment. It was kind of shocking to me to see that certain relationships that were super close and tight and integral going into cancer abruptly shifted and fell away over the course of my treatment. And there was a lot of pain and grief and sadness for me around that, and confusion. So be willing to release those relationships. So just on that note, I heard a saying a while back that man's rejection is God's protection, and I've had to really marinate on that one. And even when I had the experience of people falling away out of my life, and I've sought them out, and I've sought to step into accountability and ask questions and see, what is my role in this, and how could I show up better as a friend, or is it me, or what is it? When we realize that the other person isn't showing up in the same way, or doesn't carry that same interest to mend or repair the relationship, that we need to trust that we don't need to, but what I've found for me, what works, is learning to trust that that person is leaving because they are taking care of their own well-being. And so I've learned that I can then just bless them on their journey and pray for them for the best. Thank them for the love and the exchange that we did get to share. Take care of my own grief and sadness and confusion and anger and all of that. And that's a process. And then I've also learned that to bless them on their way, and also to redirect my focus back to those mutual relationships where people are showing up and saying yes. And if you don't have anyone like that in your life, then perhaps it is the season of you doing that with you. And I am, I'm not saying I don't have anyone. I do have really, really strong relationships in my life. But there has been seasons where I have felt alone, even if I wasn't. And perhaps let's just put it in the context of, say, an intimate partnership ending. What I realized after some time was that was the season, and this is the season of me cultivating that relationship with myself and with my higher power and with the earth and with others. But ultimately I really this is the season of me having this with myself. This is about me deepening into my relationship with me. And eventually, when and if it's time where two paths converge for another intimate partnership, I will show up more available, more in a space of love and openness and rootedness and centeredness and availability and mutuality. Yeah, so movement. Move your body daily if possible. Oh my gosh, this is so important. Move the energy up, through, and out. And so just as a movement practitioner, I cannot emphasize this enough. Move your body according to your ability right now. Now, I can say that because going into cancer, I was a mover who was very able-bodied, even though I had issues in my body. I was much more able-bodied then than I am now. And so my practice is to be compassionate and kind with myself, and to not force myself to go and do the things I used to be able to do. I'm a different person right now. That's not to say I'm not going to be able to do those things in the future, but I'm going to be kind, and I'm not going to hurt myself to try to achieve something that my brain wants. I'm going to honor what my body is able to do now, and always kind of play with the edge. Where's the edge? Now, also, I'm somebody who is experiencing chronic fatigue and exhaustion constantly. And so I have to also be compassionate that my body often wants to do nothing and feels like it just needs to sleep and just needs to rest and just needs to not. So then that means I need to, spark the energy and get up and go out. And so again, it's that idea of devotional practice and being as consistent as possible. So if that means a daily walk, and that you just feel like, I can't even do that, see if you can start off with 5 minutes. Just around outside, come back. Do it again every day. Little by little, you're going to start to build on that. Little by little, you're going to start to look forward to it. Little by little, it's going to just be a part of your daily flow. So movement helps us. It's a therapy. It's a mood enhancer. It benefits the whole being. It helps just every aspect of our being. The rhythmic movement helps the lymphatic system, helps the digestive system, helps the immune system, helps everything. Helps your mood, helps your energetic body, helps your emotional body, helps your mind, helps clear your mind. So, and make it fun if you can. If it feels like a yucky grind that you're not stoked about at all, it's probably not going to last long. So do the movements that feel good for you. And if that maybe means put on a song you can jam to for 3 minutes, do that. If you can't even get out of bed right now, envision yourself moving. And this was something that I learned when I was hospitalized and stuck holding still in a hospital bed when I had that blood clot and I had a machine in my leg and I was hooked up to machines. I couldn't move, but I had an inner directive to envision myself dancing. And obviously that was the message for me as a dancer. The message came through: envision yourself dancing if you want to get out of this hospital. And that was just my meditation every day. And I listened to music and I tried to envision myself dancing. Now, what's interesting is my brain couldn't conjure the vision of my body dancing. And instead I was shown a vision of what I think is actually my spirit dancing. I could see it. And so for those that are unable to move your body for whatever reason right now, envision it. Again, that comes back to that dream, that vision. Hold it in your mind's eye. Feel it in your body, even if you're holding still. And it is said, there's scientific data that has said that our body, our muscle tissue, all responds in the same way when we're visualizing ourselves doing it as if we're actually doing it. There's no difference in how the body responds. So, movement. medicine. Do it. And make art. Even if you're like, I'm not an artist, oh my gosh, I don't have a creative bone in my body, do the things. Write a poem, sing in the shower, in your car, draw, dance, play instruments, even if you think you suck at it. It's not about good or bad or right or wrong. It's a creative, authentic expression, and I cannot emphasize that. I keep saying that enough. Be creative. Tap into your creative self. Maybe you crochet, maybe you knit, maybe you make food, maybe you know how to decorate your space in a beautiful way. Whatever the thing might be, whatever your art form might be, do that. Get your creative juices flowing. That is medicine. So, healing trauma and PTSD. I have studied somatic experiencing and read books by Peter Levine and studied by watching YouTube videos about him. There are trainings where people train to be somatic experience therapists and practitioners, and you can go to those people. It's more of an embodied trauma resolution therapy than a talk therapy. And I can say that I have had experience with talk therapy. I've had experience with a lot of kind of therapies, which I should probably name. But I find that the somatic experiencing therapy experience is powerful for me because it's not just about talking through something, it's dropping into my somatic felt body experience, and it's a modality to help resolve trauma in real time. And so I just want to invite you to look into that if that calls to you. Also, in terms of healing trauma, PTSD, Gabor Mate, I've done a lot of studying, reading his books, watching his videos, and he is a doctor who's done so much work on connecting addiction to early childhood trauma, but he talks a lot about the effects of trauma in our body and how it shows up in our health and well-being. The Wim Hof method I highly recommend. Again, for healing trauma, for healing the physical body, healing the mind, healing the emotional body, and attuning all the bodies to the spirit. Joe Dispenza, same. He has books and meditations. So many videos and interviews and podcasts are available that you can learn his work. And this is all about utilizing the mind and the ability to have thoughts and feelings to call in the life that you long to live, whatever that might look like. And so I've done a lot of practicing of Joe Dispenza's method. I've also worked with a trauma-informed yoga therapist, and this has been really helpful for me to start to, unwind this trauma in my body in a very somatic, movement-oriented way. And so yoga therapy for healing. Hypnotherapy, I've worked with a hypnotherapist. I worked with craniosacral therapists, massage therapists, and talk therapists. What other kinds? I mean, I do my own dance therapy and nature therapy and music therapy and grief, having a grief process, having a grieving process. And so I do ceremony and I do ritual around allowing grief to move up through and out of me. And I found that that's been a very, very important practice for healing, especially with complex layers of loss. For from cancer, and not just from cancer, not just from the treatments, but from other things that were happening in my life. The loss of a relationship, the loss of my job, the loss of insurance, the loss of friendships, the loss of ability in my body, in my mind. And so, grief. And again, when I'm referencing the art can be a very powerful way for us to process our grief in a way that maybe we're not talking it through, but we're moving the energy of grief through, right? Or we're moving the energy of anger or frustration or whatever the stuck, heavy feeling might be that we're challenged with. We want to utilize this modality. We want to utilize nature. We want to utilize all the things that I just named to invite us into a place of healing and regeneration, and to imagine ourselves shifting out of survival into thriving, and to get really clear, what does thriving look like for me? What does my ideal life look and feel like? And so I would love to close here and just invite you, if it feels good, journal or sit and look in the mirror and talk it out, or talk to your loved one or talking to your voice memo on your phone, and just talk about, what does thriving look like for you? You know, if all your needs were met and you were living the life that just lights you up the most, what does that look like for you? And I just want to invite you to give yourself permission to dream and vision, and be gentle with yourself in this process and with your healing process. So thanks for dropping in with me today. I'm sure there's so many more things that I forgot to say, and if that's the case and they come to me, I'm going to come back and make another video, an addendum to this. And yes, if you want to drop in with my community, I have a Patreon page. I can link that in the description below. Feel free to share this video with anyone who you think it might serve. I also do one-on-one coaching for people who are going through the cancer initiation. And I do coaching for people who are not going through cancer, who just need support. And so I'm a life midwife, and I support people in the different seasons of their lives. And I am a movement facilitator, a breathwork facilitator, and an authenticity facilitator, and help folks really just drop in to the truth of who they truly are and live an embodied, authentic life. So, bless you and thank you. Peace be within you.